Welcome back, the Truth Podcast, Season 2. I'm so excited today to come back. Here we are, Season 2. We're about to lay a lot of truth in life. Today's a really amazing guest, very special person to me, good friend. We kind of grew up together. Such an amazing person. It's going to be, the intro might be a whole hour, so I'm going to keep it real short. Our person today is Monica Lovato, former world champion boxer, healthcare entrepreneur, dog lover, specifically lots of Yorkies. We'll talk about that, right? I'm a Shih Tzu guy. You guys know that already. But Monica, thank you for coming on and welcome to the Truth Podcast.
Thank you so much for having me, Jack. It's a pleasure to be here with you.
So, Monica, the reason I was so excited, we talk about what we're focusing on Season 2 is really my new launch is going to be the real life millionaire living. And so we're working with some guys out of California, and a lot of the questions that they ask me is, they said, what sets me aside from most of the guys that are online is that everyone online only shows the shine, right? The beautiful cars and even some real extravagant, crazy stuff. And what happens is it throws the average person off, and it says, almost makes them feel like they're a failure because are they going to achieve that? So then they lose that. And I think when I first started, I think I was on that kind of trajectory. But now is what people don't see when I get up, mow my lawn, sweep the porches, do the everyday stuff, because the cool shit is only a small period of the time. I mean, Nikki's right here with us in the studio, and, she's commented many times, how many times have I driven my Lamborghinis now in 2021?
Not enough.
Right? So... but it's all the work behind it. So where I want to start off, Monica, is let's tell the audience, let's introduce yourself, and let's start from the beginning. Tell us about your younger self, growing up, and leading us into your boxing career.
Okay. Well, I'm from the beautiful valley, Espanola Valley, and I'm proud to be from the valley up north. I grew up there. It was a little tough, as everybody knows. We had our hardships, and there was a lot of, it was a talked about town. It's a very bad town, but there's so many amazing people. I know lawyers and doctors and nurses and entrepreneurs, and you, Jack, I mean, come on. The man himself, the gen comes out of northern New Mexico,
yeah.
So I think that our town has been discriminated and been talked bad about for many, many years, but yet they don't see all the good out of there. So I'm proud to say that I'm from Espanola Valley. I went to Espanola Valley High. I graduated in 96. I played sports all my life. I got into boxing when a longtime boyfriend of mine passed away in a car accident, and I moved to Albuquerque to kind of start fresh. I had already went to Highland University. I was in college, but I wasn't fulfilled. I was very lost and consumed with this death.
How old were you at this time?
I was 19 years old.
Okay. Mm-hmm. So 19 years old.
It was my freshman year of college.
And so then you're in there, and so tell us how you got into it. Like, what was it? Did you go into a boxing class? Or what, or did you step in?
So it's a little funny. I was actually here in Albuquerque, and I was interviewing for a position as a dialysis technician, because that's what I did in Espanola at the VA hospital. And there was a little gym that I used to pass by, and there was never any cards, and one day it was loaded, so I went in there. And while I shouldn't say I went in there. I was watching from outside, and I was looking through the windows, and it was called a women's place boxing. And I saw these girls, and they were going at it, and I was like, what? This is cool. I think I need something like this. And lo and behold, the world champion Trina Ortegon trained at that gym. And so I did most of my amateur career at that gym, and that's where it all started. And the funny thing about it is, I'll share this with you. I was just telling this to one of my patients, is there was this, I don't even know, 12 or 13-year-old little girl. And I had worked up to about a month of training, and they're like, oh, you could spar. And in my head, I'm already almost 20 years old, and I'm like, what's this little girl gonna do to me? And so I thought, I'm gonna go in there, and I was afraid. I was like, I don't want to hurt her. Oh my God. I couldn't get a punch in. I was like, boom, 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 boom. All the entire time this little girl is going circles and me kicking. She didn't hurt me.
Right.
But I couldn't touch her. Like if we were counting points, she totally outbeat me and outscored me. I think maybe I threw 3 punches in the whole time.
You were covering up the rest of
Oh,
the
it
time.
was horrible. And I was like, that was my motivation. I was like, I just got my ass whooped by this little child, And so that was my motivation. And from there on, the training began.
So she was hitting you with all kinds of angles.
Mm-hmm. She sure was. And she was tiny. I mean, I don't even think she was, I don't know, maybe 90 pounds. And I was probably like 135 pounds. So I thought, oh, I'm the big, tough one.
Yeah.
Oh, no, she was going circles around me. And I was like, if I could just catch her. But I never could catch her.
And you know what's so crazy? This is what I talk about in life. And I've always used life or business like boxing. And it's really the preparation that you do on the outside of the ring is what prepares you for being in the fight. And really understanding the fundamentals so that, you got a cool story of where I've seen a lot of boxers that don't really get a lot of, I would say, the basics. And then they go in and then you got a bullshit trainer and then people get hurt. And I've seen this multiple times.
I've seen it too.
Especially it was very huge in like the Muay Thai area where people were getting extremely hurt because, they weren't properly trained. And and that really sucks. But in life, in business, if you get knocked out, you might never get up because it might be one of the biggest financial situations you'll ever do, right? Mm-hmm. So walking forward that, so then you go in the gym, you start training, and then walk us through a little more. So what made you then say, okay, I'm going to do these? How many amateur fights were you involved in?
So the motivation was this little girl whooping my butt. And then I just started committing. I've always played sports my whole life throughout high school. So it was just like practice. I was there every single day, 6 days a week. I started doing my running. I started eating healthy. It just completely took away from the chaos that I was dealing with in my personal life and the death that I was dealing with and what was I doing with myself. And I totally turned all of my energy to this sport. And it was a lot of hard work, a lot of training, a lot of sacrifice, eating healthy, not eating, getting in the sauna, sweating it out, sparring guys all the time, trying to make myself better. My coaches putting me with all these people, it was hard work. I remember one time sparring in Albuquerque. We were at the gym, and I had sparred, I think, 2 different guys. And I thought I was fine. I never got knocked down, nothing. It was great sparring. They were teenagers. I was, an adult woman, 22. But it's, a man and a woman, it's not the same.
Yeah.
And so I got in my car and I started driving home. I was on I-40, and all of a sudden I could start seeing like the lights were just coming at me, and it felt like I couldn't see the road. And I remember driving up to Wantabo and getting parking at my apartment complex. And when I got off of my car, my equilibrium was completely off. And I had a hard time walking up the stairs. I went to go sit on my couch, and I missed the couch and went to the floor. So I had completely had a concussion and didn't even realize that happened during that sparring session. And that just goes to show how hard I sparred and worked, and how my coaches, they pushed me to. In order to be the best, you have to fight and work with the best, right?
Absolutely. That's just life. It's kind of like we've always talked about, you see this all over the internet. You got to get people that are better than you around you in order for you to rise.
Absolutely.
Or else you can't do it, right? That's the same thing in business, in finding a mentor or anybody. You have to find people that are doing better than you to help you get to that next level. So then you start off there, you're sparring, and then tell us about your first fight.
Then I had my first amateur fight, and I had all my family and friends. I had a huge support system. And I won the fight. Don't ask me how. I think it was just, as an amateur. I think we were just brawling and going for it. And, I was tough growing up in Espanola, but putting on the gloves and timing everything, and it's a whole different world. And I remember after the round, and they raised my hand, and I was going to the ropes, and I was like I couldn't breathe. I felt like I was blowing fire out of my lungs, and I was like, holy shit. And it just, I don't know, every single path that I went through and every single step that I took just gave me more drive to become better. Like, I just kept on wanting more and wanting to be the best. And I knew that it was hard work. And so, little by little, I went to nationals. I got a bronze medal. And then shortly after that, I turned professional. And fought several fights. I fought on a Golden Boy promotion out in California, my second pro fight, and I got hometowned. And I ended up avenging that fight, and I fought that girl for my first NABF title, and I beat her. And then I fought one of the best fighters in the world, Mariana Juarez, who was still fighting way after I stopped and has I don't know how many world titles, and I beat her for the IBA world title. And that was a fight, a tough, amazing fight. But I'll tell you what. Before that fight, and this is no excuse, I won the fight. But before the fight, I was in the back, and we were getting ready. I was the main event. Well, at the time, I didn't know that I had celiac disease. And so every fight, I was always getting sick because my coaches were pushing carbohydrates on me.
Shitload.
And, after weigh-ins, you got to eat pizza, you got to eat pasta, and I was like, it doesn't fit me like it makes. And so I used to have this inside joke with my friends, and I was like, oh, I'm just, I'm a warrior. I'm just made to eat healthy. My body I can't eat all this other stuff. It makes me sick. Like, I'm beast mode all the way. And they would laugh at me and say, whatever. But I really didn't know there was something wrong. I just knew that I would get sick when I ate all this unhealthy food. And so I had ate lunch, and I got sick. I was in the back, and my cousin, a lot of my family can actually be there too. They were in the back with me, and my stomach was gurgling, and I was like sweating, and I was so sick. I was going to the restroom. I mean, if I wasn't, vomiting, I was the other way. I had to take off my gloves several times. So I literally kicked everybody out of my room, and I laid face down. And I started praying, and I psyched myself out. And I was like, how bad do you really fucking want this?
Right. Right.
Are you going to let this take you on? Or, like, what did you work for? What are you going to do? And I didn't warm up. I closed my eyes, and I just breathed, and I breathed. And I got up, and we warmed up for 5 minutes, and I went out there stone cold and ready to. But nobody knew that I was sick before the fight. And after the fight, the next day, I ended up going to the hospital, and the doctors still didn't know. They removed my gallbladder emergency, thinking that it was that, but lo and behold, it was celiac disease all along that I found out like 10 years later.
And how crazy is that I've heard so many people get their gallbladder removed because it's celiac disease. Mm-hmm. So I'll tell you something crazy. So I would say back in November, I ended up getting COVID, and it knocked the shit out of me. Got to the point where it hit my lungs hard. I didn't end up going to the hospital or anything, but I'm very strong mentally, right? I everything I learned in the East and training with Luke and all these people I train with, I have that mind, body, spirit connection. Mm-hmm. And so I met a guy named Eli Gibbs who motivated me to get back into extreme fitness. And I started training, and I would lay on the bench, and the fucking lights would spin. And it got to the point where I wanted to give up, and I was literally telling myself, "You son of a bitch, you're a fighter. I don't give a shit. Close your eyes. You're gonna get through these workouts." And the first 6 workouts were so brutal because everything was off. There was not enough oxygen, right? Mm-hmm. And I looked at this, and I was looking at my book because I write everything down. I like to write everything down, right? It was literally 6 weeks it took of brutality to get where I'm at. And now, I'm knocking it out, right? I'm just in there. I'm training with a bunch of boxing coaches, doing stuff that I love. But it took that level, and I could have given them many, many times. And so I understand what you're talking about, right? Most people don't. It's called grit. And if you don't have grit, you don't have anything.
That's right.
People will just give up over anything. Something small in their life, they give up. And we are warriors. We're warriors. Where we come from, we are warriors. We're like born and bred to fight, I would say, because we have to defend ourselves all the time. But that grit is what makes us so successful to do the next things in our lives, right? So, Monica, how long did you stay entirely into the fight game?
I believe that it was about 16 years that I fought. 15, 16 years.
And then for a stint there, you went from boxing to mixed martial arts, right?
Yes, I did. When I moved to Albuquerque, I started training with Fit NHB with Arlene Sanchez, and she was like, I'll train you boxing, but you should really try MMA. And I'm like, oh, I have this claustrophobic about wrestling with people and stuff. She's like, no, you can just, you can use you can use your punches and your kicks and everything. And I was like, all right, I street fight before. It shouldn't be a big deal. But it was, it was another whole different type of war and workout, and definitely intense.
What did you think was the big difference between mixed martial art and boxing for you?
So for one, I had a lot more experience boxing, but I feel like MMA, mixed martial arts, there's so many different fights and so many different techniques that you're putting into it. I mean, you're doing wrestling, you're doing kickboxing, you're doing Muay Thai, you're doing jiu-jitsu, you're doing boxing. So it is definitely intense. It is intense. I mean, you have to be ready to go to the ground or stand up or get a kick to the head.
Yeah.
It's definitely different. I would still have to say that boxing is where my heart is and my love. But I enjoyed MMA. I think had I maybe had some high school wrestling experience or some jiu-jitsu experience, it'd be different. I like it more because I ended up fighting and I was getting to girls where, I mean, if I could knock them out. But if we went to the floor, I'd have to protect myself because I'd be in a pretzel in like 3 seconds, you know, and it's just like I'd get out of this arm bar, and then before you know it, I'm being rear naked choked, and then I'm in another arm bar, and I'm like, holy shit, I'm exhausted.
People always ask me why when I want to do mixed martial arts, and it was exactly what you talked about. And I says, for me, I always had to rely on my speed on my fist, power, and my kicking ability. I knew that if I caught you, you were fucked, right? And so when you change it up, the reason I'm asking these questions is what mixed martial arts represents to me in business is doing multiple things, and you're mastering, trying to do multiple things. But what I've noticed is this: you'll never see a very mediocre fighter ever beat a great fighter in boxing. It will never happen.
Right.
But you will see in mixed martial arts, like when we saw back in I think it was a 2000, early 20, I think it was like 2013, when GSP lost. I came to the guy and I was like, holy shit. Because one kick could just change everything. One choke, it just changes everything. And
That's just like boxing. One punch can change everything.
Yeah. But the thing is, you're only focused on that, and it's that strength and conditioning and the skill, right? Like the girl with the 13-year-old. Someone hits you with a lot of angles, you're screwed. I don't care how strong you are, right? Because they're going to literally wear you out. Right. They're going to get to your mind. It's like chipping away.
Yes.
And I work with a guy, and he brings in fighters, and I watch these guys, and it's really they got this attitude like, I'm just gonna go in there like a pit bull. And then I watch these other kids that have a good attitude, and they ask questions, and I'm like, you know what I would do, I said, wait for the right time, let him unload, count in your head, and watch for every 7 punches he throws, that's where you knock him, because he's going to be winded. And so he comes to me and he says, holy shit, I tried that, and he hit him with a body punch. I said, all you have to do is hit somebody with a body punch.
Oh, yeah.
And I was showing Nikki's just stepping out of angles one day, and she's like, holy crap. I said, imagine you do that in kickboxing. Now it's just not the reach of your arm, it's the reach of your leg. And you can get someone in multiple areas. That's what I attest in business, right? Is when you really have that arsenal, and do I know how to manage money? Do I know how to market? Do I know how to go after clients? Do I know how to retain them? That's the exact same thing. It's knowing the strategy in business. It's the same thing as boxing. This is going to make you very successful. Let me ask you this. Going in, during tough times, what pushed you to keep on going?
During my fight career?
Just, in your fight career?
General?
Just in general. But yeah, let's talk about the fight career. What?
I've had a lot of loss and a lot of hardship in my life, with a lot of family that has passed and problems that have happened, and a lot of people that I love deeply have passed away and have whether it's an overdose or suicide or or whatever the cause may be. There's been several, and that drove me to just want to succeed. I don't know how to explain it. There's something inside that I wanted to show my family that we all could survive and we all could make it.
What that's called is, you are motivated by negative reinforcement, just like me. We come from an area, I tell people this, that there was a lot of poverty around me, but I just decided not to really recognize it. Mm-hmm. But what I did recognize was that I lived in Peñasco, and at the time, Peñasco was a very clean area. It's kind of more of a country town. And then we rolled into Espanol, and Espanol was like the big city for us, and we were like excited. Mm-hmm. But what I would see is a lot of drugs, and then you saw the drugs, and you see the addicts and how desperate they were. And I remember my mom giving them money and just kind of helping them out, and she would see, look, one bad decision, and look where you're at, right? And so I was exactly what you were. Like, my brother got addicted to drugs, and his whole life changed, right? Changed my whole life. It affected my family. But at the end of the day, drugs is such a nasty thing that once it gets you, it has a hold of you, and it's game over, right? This is what I always preach. It doesn't sound like a dare program here, but I'm like, if you really want to fuck your life up, take drugs.
Exactly.
I don't care what level you're at. It will bring you down so fast, you won't even know what's going on.
You're right. And Jack, we come from the same town, and we see a lot of the same things. And, I grew up north of Espanilla and Rio Chama, but Espanilla was a big town. That's where I went to school. And I had cousins, I had uncles, I had family that were addicted to drugs. And, thankfully I had a wonderful mom and dad, and who, I feel like when I moved to Albuquerque, I was very naive from what I was back home, but yet I knew a lot of other things that kids in Albuquerque, I feel, or my friends anyways that I was meeting up with, didn't know. But my mom and dad were very open with me, and, like she would tell me, your uncle's addicted to drugs, and this is what happens. And he'd come into our home, and we'd, feed him dinner and try to keep him clean and have him take a shower. But it was just you never knew when we were going to see him. And then, unfortunately, the circle went through, and then my little cousins, people that I grew up with, that I love, we've lost a few family members due to overdoses and drugs, and it's hard. And so my drive, even before then, because it was my uncles before they got it, they looked up to me as a boxer, and the community looked up to me as a fighter. And that was more of my drive than winning titles and being this person. It was just like, how many people can I inspire? How many people from Espanilla can I say, hey, you can be whatever you want to be, whether it's an artist, a rapper, a boxer, a lawyer, a doctor, whatever it is. You have adversity and you don't have the best upbringing, you still have a chance. And I think that was my drive that's been my drive.
I think that's what, in the segue, makes you such a good healthcare person. My running joke is, if I had a nurse, it's going to be Monica. Not that I ever want one nurse, but you have that touch for humans. And tell us a little bit about the segue into healthcare. Like, what made you stay in nursing? Like, what was it for you?
So before I started fighting, I actually became a dialysis tech in Espanilla. And my mom thought that I would be a wonderful nurse, and a few other people thought I'd be a great nurse. And so I started working at the dialysis center in Espanilla, and I told my mom, I don't want to be a nurse. They're mean. They're mean to the patients, and I don't want to be that person. Like, I don't want to be mean. And she's like, well, Monica, she said, you can be that one person that makes a difference. And I was like, yeah, but everybody, I couldn't understand, like, how are we going to fix the world?
Right.
I didn't want to just fix one person. I wanted the whole world to be good. And she said, it's just that one person, and you changing one person's life leads to another and to another, and people will catch on. You don't have to be a mean nurse. You can be a good nurse.
Leading with kindness. People don't realize how powerful it is.
Mm-hmm.
That's my whole goal, is like, I'm going to be kind to somebody.
Absolutely.
And I think that's what's been lost in our society, is that level of just being kind to people.
Right.
No matter what you do in what life, and no matter what level you're at. So you're in the nursing, and so I remember when you were in nursing school, because I used to motivate you sometimes.
Yes.
Or like an ass kicking.
So when my mom passed away, that's probably one of the most devastating deaths that I've ever dealt with to this day. And I think it changed me, but it changed me to be a better person, to be a stronger person. And that has been my drive to succeed in life and to help as many people that I can. So I went into nursing school, and when I finished with my bachelor's degree, I wanted to go ahead and do my master's degree. I didn't want to end there, so I finished my master's degree. And I worked as a dialysis nurse, and then I started doing home health care. And at that stage in my life, I was like, I don't want to work for somebody else. I want to be able to own my own business and teach my staff how to take care of people and how to do the right thing. And you and I talked about this,
yes.
Jack. You helped me with this, and we talked, and it was like I wanted to open my own business. I didn't know how or where to start with this, but it was a goal of mine. And that's when I started thinking about the assisted living home. And it was just, being in nursing homes. And one of my great aunts was in a nursing home, and it was awful. You see these poor people are not paid attention. They're over, the caregivers are overworked. They're taking care of 30 patients by themselves, and it was just too much. And so I went to a residential assisted living academy in Phoenix, and I started educating myself on entrepreneurship and business. And I had the nursing background, so I knew the medical field of assisted living, but I started working on that. And with your help and with your guidance, I remember calling you multiple times. I'm like, Jack, oh my God. But, I just, I started it, and, I thought about some business partners, and then I found amazing business partners, and it's been great. It's a dream come true having Casita Senior Living. It's something that I envisioned, and being able to get partners and making all of that happen was just truly a blessing. All of our residents, I have to say, I have so many residents that, we've had several residents pass away, but families that send us flowers and thank us, and people love being there. And like I sit and I tell my residents, I'll go in and I'll sit with them and I'll tell them, this is your home. We are working for you. This is your home. So you tell them whatever you need. And if they don't listen, you call me, and I let them know that they're the boss. They put their time in. They've already worked their asses off. It's time for us to cater to them. And so to me, Casita Senior Living, instead of an assisted living, it's like retirement.
Right.
It's their retirement home. That'll be their last home, but they're going to live with dignity, and with love and respect and comfort. And, they want to sit there, and, I have a resident that likes to sit there, and he likes to drink German beer. We call the doctor up, hey, we need an order for beer, because obviously I can't give them anything without a doctor's order. Right. But in assisted living home, those are things that we look at. I assess families, and I assess the patients, and I talk with the family. What are their favorite things? What can we do that way we can get the doctor's orders for things that they like? And, it's not always alcohol, but there's certain things like, this gentleman, he likes to eat steak once a week all the time. He's a meat lover, and so we do that for him. We just really, my biggest goal is to just make these people happy and let them know that, we will take care of them, and we'll do everything that they need to keep them safe and to keep them enjoying the rest of their life. It's quality of life. You know, we don't want them to be in bed all day. We have them exercising, doing yoga. We have a sidewalk, and there's my boxing. You know, we even actually have a heavy bag in the thing, and I was like, you know, this is really good for Parkinson's. We can help these people. And so, you know, we do a little bit of everything in that house, and it truly is a blessing.
I want to tell you, Monica, that I am extremely proud of you in seeing you from talking to going to a fruition. You don't know how many people I sit with, and I hear these, I call them stories, right? But you really taking it, and I'm gonna tell you, Monica likes to drive me nuts personally. I'm more of a getting from point A to point B, but very straight line. Monica's more of a going sideways like this, goes up and down, but she gets there. You know what I mean? It's a low roll out here, but I'm just like, holy crap, don't get hit. And so, you know, but she does it, and that's one thing. And the other thing I got to say about you, Monica, is not because you're here on the podcast. You're probably one of the most selfless humans I've ever met. That's what's I've had such an attraction to you as a human, is because I watch you, and I you know, some people say, a lot of people say, I want to mirror me, right? And I'm like, nah, I got some people, but you really care about people, and you want to carry them along. And I remember you drive me nuts, and I'd be like, are you wanting to start a business, or are you trying to start a support group? Right? I'm a little confused here. Is this going to be a for-profit, or are we talking about non-profit, right? And I'd go through these whole discussions with Monica, and I would say, but you know what? I'm never going to shut her off. I'm going to give her the gospel according to the general. What she takes from there, there's a lot that's going to be good. That's not going to work for her, for personality. But it's really awesome to see you where you're at. I personally was there at the grand opening. I was blown away. I was just going to go hang out for the hell of it, right? So, you know what I mean? I'm going to come here once a week and hang out. But it's a very phenomenal place in the sense that I would put somebody that I'd put my dad there if he needed to be there. But it's just an amazing environment, the home, your staff, the culture. You've created what I call a harmonics culture, where you create a standard and everyone follows it. Mm-hmm. And that's what's beautiful about something like that, because it's got to be your culture. It's got to be what you've created, or it's never going to work, right? It's not going to be sustainable. And that's one thing I really, really like about you. Another thing about you, Monica, that I've always admired is you're a very grounded individual, almost too grounded for me. It just drives me nuts sometimes, right? What gives you that grounding, Monica, that you're just like very, almost like you want to do philanthropy and business at the same time? What gives you that grounding?
You know, Jack, I've always been like that as a child. I remember I was the only child, you know, and I wanted brothers and sisters, and I would cry to my mom and dad, I'm never going to be an auntie, you know, and I wanted this big family. And I remember, like for Christmases and holidays, we'd go shopping, and I'd tell my mom, well, we have to get, you know, all my cousins and all my friends. And so she'd break it down to me, well, okay, well, if you want these Nike Jordans, then we can't buy everybody else gifts. But if you get these, then we can get okay, well, get us all the same shoe. It's fine. And so it's just, I don't know, I thrive off of helping others and helping others be successful. And it's just, I've had great role models, you know, people like you that have put me in my place and have talked to me and made me realize, because I've been taken advantage of millions of times. And I've seen that, and I've worked that. And I think, you know, it was hard. It was hard trying to get up and get my business going and doing things. It's easy when people talk about it, but then you really want to do it. Mm-hmm. And I just feel like when my mom passed away, I just felt like I had so much more to do, you know, and I had to, you know, build it. And, you know, at first it was like, oh, I want to build her this beautiful house and this and that. And well, now she was gone, and I hadn't even met those goals yet. And so now it's like, I want her to see me, and I want her to just be shining down, knowing that I'm helping other people, because that's the way she was, and doing back. And of course, you know, the ultimate goal is financial freedom and having time to spend with family and friends and all of that stuff. And it all takes time. You know, I've come a long ways. It's been hard work. And, but I don't give up. We have so many goals. My partners and I, you know, we want to open 5, 6, 7 Casita senior livings and keep on going. There's a big a big goal, and it's just a great place to be in. You know, my staff, they'll laugh because they're like, "Oh, Monica's a mean one." And I sit there and I'll have real conversations with him. You know, and I'll tell him, "Look, I worked in the hospital and I've seen people die, and I've seen this, and I don't want you to have to go through that. I want to prepare you so you're aware of it.
Right.
You know, just remember that this is someone's grandpa or grandma. This is someone's mom or dad. So you treat them the way you would want your grandpa or grandma treated." And I even told my staff when I worked as a nurse in dialysis, I would always tell my caregivers, because I was a caregiver at one time. I was a dialysis tech. And I was like, I treated them good and I took care of them when other nurses would bury them and belittle them.
Right.
But without our techs, you couldn't, they do everything for you. And the more you teach them and you reward them for doing good, they enjoy helping you more.
And, talking about that, Monica, it's crazy. So a lot of Minds people get like this desire, or they feel fulfilled by putting people down. I've never understood that. It doesn't, to me, it's like, what would I get about putting someone down? One of the greatest compliments I get all the time is that they tell me, Jack, you're really kind and you're really mellow, and for everything you've attained, you just don't talk down to people. And I've never been like that. I've been like that as I was a kid, like we were talking about. And I've never understood that. Like when you have the knowledge or any type of skill, and then you use that to put somebody down. Mm-hmm. And that's never made any sense to me. Instead of saying, well, no, let me help this person out. Like, to simple things. Like when people ask me about money or trading, knowledge was never meant to be like this. Mm-hmm. Knowledge was meant to be shared.
To share.
And I'm not scared of losing my position. I'm like, take my position. But you're not going to want to do it because I'm up at 5 a.m. every day, mm-hmm. right? It's going to be a lot. So that's what I've never understood. But one thing I live by, and I really share this in multiple podcasts, is I watched this Denzel Washington clip that I love. He's giving a commencement speech, and he says, the greatest gift we can ever give anybody is helping them succeed, and watching that and how it makes you feel. And it's true. It's not some bullshit story. Anytime I've helped somebody, it like gives you a certain feeling. So I understand that. But the one thing I tell people you have to be careful is that you're not pouring water into the wrong plant and they're just sucking your energy dry.
Well, you can't want it more than them.
Yeah.
And I learned that from you, Jack, because you've taught me that, talking to you. But I remember coaching, and I put my entire heart and effort and everything into those kids. And, I would battle with some of them because they just, they had a bad upbringing, a bad family, and it took a while. I was like that hard, let's get in the ring and let's spar. Okay, you think you can fucking fight? Well, let's go.
Yes.
I'm a girl, so you should be able to kick my ass. And it was that hard knock life with some of those kids. But you know what? After the fact, they respected me, they loved me, and they grew. And to me, teaching them everything I knew didn't take away from me. No. I had this fulfillment in this, like, oh man, it felt so good for us to go, and here's a girl coach and a whole bunch of hoodlums from Espanola, but we're kicking everybody's ass, Right. And so it's a great feeling. But to see them from their self-esteem and being these little chubby boys to getting a six-pack and being in a shape, oh my God, these guys' head blew up. Their right. self-esteem was to another world, and it was fun. I enjoyed teaching them and giving them that, and that's just something that I've always enjoyed. And I've done a lot of community service, a lot of free time, and like you said, are you gonna do a nonprofit? And I was like, okay, I gotta take care of myself and my yes. well-being, and try to be able to grow myself financially, so that way I can continue to take care of people and continue to give more and continue to help others, because that's something that I love to do.
It's like me. I do the big stuff with Los Ojos, and I like to do that. But I'm not as one-on-one touch as you are. My coach used to say this. He says, "I was bred to train champions," and that's how I feel. Like the reason I have such a huge success rate in the people that I've mentored is because the people that have already come, you guys are already past the combine. Mm-hmm. You already got the national titles, mm-hmm. right? And when you get to me, I'm really just honing what you already know, and I'm just teaching a strategy. You know, and I think that that's one thing that I've been pretty good at, because I've been let down in my younger career with people, and I'd be putting all this time, and I was just, you know, I just call it Mr. Rogers died. No more storytelling. But it's really about watering the right plant at the right time and not giving more of yourself than you're willing to lose. So if you just give it and then they take it, you got to be okay. Well, I'm okay with that. And a lot of people put a lot of time and effort, and then they feel just taken. Like, you know what I'm trying to say? And
I've been there, and I honestly remember, I mean, you and I have had multiple conversations about this, and I think, you know, it was you definitely were the one who helped me start opening my eyes and realizing and not allowing people to take advantage of me or not. You know, of course, you're never wasting time when you're educating and you're teaching people, but at the same time, there has to be a limit, right? Because if that's what you're doing for a career, for a life, then you're going to be living out on the streets if you're doing everything for free.
And you can't do that. You know, I think a lot of people always come to me and say, "How do you get to where you're at?" I'm like, "Holy shit, that's an open-ended question." You want me to give you 22 years in how to get there in 10 minutes? You're not gonna do it. There's no get rich quick bullshit.
No.
You got to put the work. Everything I used to tell you, it's
Discipline.
Discipline. It's one block at a time. You know, a funny story for me is like, people that tell me, and there might be people like that, do you think I like going to the weight room? Absolutely not. It's a job to me. And so I just lay out my job and I lay what it is and I say, I got to do this, and I just do it. You know, me and Nikki always laugh. And so I'm like, people are looking for what makes them happy. And they're like, I'm happy. I'm like, I'm not fucking happy. I just do it. I get it done. I like playing with my dogs. I like being at home. I like race car driving. I like fucking off in the ocean, but I don't like work. That's stupid as shit. Yeah. And so when people are like, I'm going to find my passion, well, good luck. You can do, like, you're doing great things. Like, I touch people in technology. I know when I design as an engineer and I'm able to solve highly complex things and it's helping the community, yes, I understand that. But people mix up, especially this generation today, like, I want this passion, and it's like, I want to do these glorious things and I'm having fun. And I'm like, that's like 1%. Like, you're not you got to get realistic. And most of the youth I coach today, I'm like, you're going to have to do something you don't like so that you do something that you absolutely like. Like, we talk about fighting, right? And I like to use that example, or in any sport. Think about the hours and time you put. For me, it's only 9 minutes. For you, it was more minutes than 9 minutes. But imagine to prepare hours and days for 9 minutes.
Yeah.
And then you got to lay it down in that 9 minutes, right? There's not that much glory in it. Look at what you had to sacrifice to do it. But when you got the six pack and you're all ripped and you're there and you're like, you know what? If people just worked out 3 days out of the week, they're going to look better than 80% of the world.
Yeah, absolutely.
How crazy is that? Just 3 days a week, you're going to look better than 80% consistently. But when people sit with me and say, you know what, I'm doing this, I'm working out, and their body doesn't change, I'm like, you're not selling, I don't care. You're not selling me a dream. You're full of shit. And you know, you have to live with that. It's like when, well, I'm doing this work, and then, well, the bank account doesn't match that. Right? I'm not a professional trader, but if I showed you my trading account, you'd be like, holy shit, I showed someone today. And I said, look, I just do it. Like Nike. You know, I read, I just get it done. Like, there's no magic twist to it, right?
Right.
And I like to ask a lot of questions, and I'm not afraid to get someone and say, hey, how do you do this? Right? But that's what people is. Their egos are so huge. Or they're just time wasters. Reading a fucking 1,000 books, but not doing one thing, one action.
Exactly.
I'm like, if you don't know what to do, just get out there and bench press and squat. If that's all you did, you're going to get a lot better than what you're doing.
Yes.
Right?
And, you know, now with technology, I mean, my goodness, there's...
YouTube.
If you don't know what to do, YouTube a video or get on, you know, Instagram, social media, whatever it is, and start watching, follow these professional anybody that you want to look like, and follow their workouts. I mean, nowadays it's completely different than what it used to be.
Imagine in our time we didn't have that.
Yeah, exactly.
We had at best you could go and get a magazine at first if you could afford the $10 or $8
and read
it and look through it and like just check out the form. Right? It's so crazy, right?
Now you can watch the video and watch the form from the
start
beginning to the end.
No excuse, right? All the information. We are in an era of so much information, but no action.
Exactly.
That's a sad piece, right?
Laziness.
Let me ask you this. If you could go back to your younger self, what would be some advice you would give yourself? Or would you?
Absolutely. I mean, I've learned so much throughout life. I enjoy learning, and I think, you know, if I can go back to childhood, I had all these dreams and aspirations, and I had my parents were my mentors, but my parents didn't know, like if somebody like, I thought I want to be an actress. That's what I wanted to be as a little girl. But my parents didn't know, hey, you need to be in drama classes. You need to do this. Right. You need to do that. You need to do that. If I could go back to my old self, I would have the mentors and the people that I follow. I would have educated myself. Obviously, as a child, I couldn't have. But if I could go back to like 15, 16 years old, I'd read the books and educate and have mentors and people like you that are strong on my side and not worried about being with my friends and hanging out and being popular. I'd be driven to succeed at whatever it is I want to do. My little cousin is a softball player, and she has her family support, and she has all of the technology and everything is there now. So she plays softball in school. She plays softball out of school in all of the leagues. She's going to all the camps. I mean, this little girl is pitching. She's a freshman, and she's in her 8th grade year. She's pitching faster than what I was. And I used to think I was pretty badass. I went to North-South All-Stars. Yeah. But I didn't have year-round training and year-round camps and private pitching coaches and all this stuff. And it's like technology is so there. And all I can say is like to all these teenagers and all these kids out there that are going, follow your dreams, follow your goals, and keep going and learn from those people that you look up to.
And don't let other humans stomp on your dreams. You got to do the approach of, I do not, when I wake up in the morning, the general does not give a shit what anybody's opinions about him. Yes. I'm just going to attack what's mine, and don't let humans sidewind you. I think, Monica, and me knowing you for so many years, that's been one of your big deficits, is allowing humans to throw you off, because there was so many opportunities for you where I could have seen you and you've done well, man. But still, it was like a roadblock when you could have just smashed right through it, because the roadblock that humans were putting for you weren't really a roadblock. It was more of a speed bump.
Absolutely. And had I probably would have flourished much more in my boxing career and my fight career had I not had those roadblocks or those individuals in my life that, I was asked, my manager was Grant Phillips. He had a reality show in New York City for me. But at the time, my boyfriend was jealous and didn't want me to be a part of that. And, I lost a lot of great opportunities. Yeah. And, and it is what it is. I think God's plan was for me to help others and to take care of people. And that's why I have Casita Senior Living, and, to teach my staff and to grow and to be able to help the elders and continue giving back. So, I love fighting, and that was my world. It's always my namaste and my place to go work out. Yeah. But, you can't give a shit what other people think, just like you said, Jack. And that was my problem for many years. We talked about this. Yes. And it's like, at the end of the day, those people don't pay your bills. Those people don't go to the gym for you. Those people don't get dressed. They don't go for work for you. They don't do anything for you, but they're there to sidetrack you or to tell you to hang out or to, give you their bullshit opinion that doesn't mean anything.
It's so funny. I always like to share the story of, it's like the people that are the closest to you. Well, for me, I mean, not for you, but for me, are the ones that really don't support you. I share this story and probably piss a lot of people off, but when people don't realize this, but I got into bodybuilding very young. I mean, when I was 16 years old, I was a phenom. I hold bench press records in northern New Mexico. I mean, I was known through all the Atlas gym, and I was kickboxing since I was 13 years old, right? But I remember at the time, my high school girlfriend, I see this magazine, I'm like, I'm going to do this muscle media show. And at the time, I can't remember what the guy's name was, but he had a big supplement company. And I remember telling her and her parents, and even my parents, and they were just like, oh, like, I don't know if you can do this, right? And it fucking pissed me off, right? And in my heart, I said, okay, you son of a bitches. And I remember I go in and we do the first, I guess it was like the first tryout, and I blow the fuck out of everybody. And everyone's like, oh shit, right? And I remember going there, and we're in Denver, Colorado, and I just blew everybody out. And I'm only 16 and a half years old. But I had this goatee, so people thought I was like 20 years old. And I was like, now what? But I had like that anger in my, so I remember coming home and I said, do you remember when you didn't believe in me? And then my mom looked at me and says, I never said that. And I said, yeah, you did. We're going back and forth, right? And I remember my girlfriend at the time was like, well, why do you want to do that? You want to pick up more chicks? I'm like, that doesn't make any sense, right? But even her parents, as good as they were to me, it was almost like this instilled envy, like, I don't want to see you do that, right? And then I rose all the way to number 3. Think about this shit, right? Never doing this. And at that point, I'm like, now I can go to the next level. But I never got like, you could do it, right? Then I remember stepping into this gym, and Gino used to have my bar because I had the bars all bent. And I remember throwing up 405 pounds, right? 6 reps. And everybody was like, oh, and then nobody could do it. But but in my mind, I look at it and it would just fuel me even more to be like, take a shit, right? And I remember one time I had set this goal, and I'm like, I'm going to get this Corvette. And I'm just working my ass off. And people would ask me, where's your Corvette? Like mocking me, right? Mm-hmm. And I remember when it finally got there, and I had the first convertible C5 Corvette ever delivered to northern New Mexico, ever, right? This is what 55, 60-year-old dudes at the laboratories are getting. And I pull up, and I'm 23 years old. That feeling, I have fire, right? And I remember the guys that were in the gym talking shit. And if Gino ever listens to this, I knocked out a lot of people outside the gym. Not proud of that, but that's just who my personality is. And I remember I get the towel, and I walk up to these haters, and I throw the towel and Windex, and I said, you know what, assholes? Go wipe those rims, because that's the closest you'll ever get to one of these. But I've just always been negativity.
It was the negative that drove you. And it's crazy that you say that, because I never really thought of it in that matter, but it is a lot of negative that has happened in my life that has only driven me to want to be the very best that I can of myself.
And the reason I want to share those stories is that my life's never been a downhill fucking skiing. I've had nothing but obstacles my whole life against me. Like, just, I want to see you fail. Oh, you know what? You should be more humble. You should be this. And I'd be like in my head, fuck you. But the greatest thing for me is when I turned 25 years old and I became a multimillionaire, that was the biggest fuck you to everybody. Because I was like, you know what? You kept me down, but now you can't say shit. And at that point, I didn't even want to like throw it in their face. I was like, it's done over. But that's what I always tell people is that if I could do it out of the smallest community ever and fight every odd against me, you can do it. It's just literally saying, I'm not going to give up. And like Monica, seeing where she's at. And it's just why I'm just like, this is so amazing, right? Monica, basically we're coming close to the end here, but to leave with the listeners, what message would you want to leave to them about, we talk a lot about mind, body, spirit, financial connection and freedom, and we've kind of touched it, but what would really be the thing that you want to just touch people up? Everything we've talked about, would you want to reiterate to the listeners?
Well, Jack, if I were to look at the 10 simple rules in life for success, for me, there's 2.
Okay.
The number 1 that you say, your word is your bond, protect it because you only have one. I agree with you 100%. But my next one would be number 7, there's no substitution for hard work and dedication. And that's just, I guess, because that comes from me personally, all the hard work and all the dedication that I've committed. But, to all the listeners out there and all the young people trying to reach out on their goals, do not ever quit. Don't stop. Don't listen to the negativity, and look for people like Jack who are role models and who will help you achieve your goals and who have good, they have good feedback for you. I love giving feedback. I love teaching and I love educating. And I'm still learning myself.
Yeah.
I'm still learning
We're
and
all
I'm
learning.
still growing, right? You never stop. But, you know, if you have a passion and you have a drive, don't quit. Keep on going. Never quit, not for anybody.
You got it there, boys and girls. The Truth Podcast. Monica, thank you for coming on the show. But you heard it there. Ultimately, guys, people's opinions can't be cashed at the bank, so it doesn't really matter. Do not get sidetracked. Keep the fight. Fight to the end till you're dizzy as shit. But you know, at the end of the day, it's your goals, and no one's going to fight for them like you fight for them. Absolutely. We're out. Welcome back, and stay tuned for the next episode.